G'day Darkrealmers, it's horror author and illustrator Michael J. Elliott here with you again today. And today I'm reviewing for you Joe Nesbo's The Bat, which is the very first Harry Hole detective novel. Okay, hey, if this is your first trip to the Diaries, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're trying to find the best movies and books to read from Hollywood and independent producers, then you've come to the right place, because that's what we do here at the Diary. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, and you'll always be up to date. Okay, Darkrealmers. So Joe Nesbo's Harry Hole series has been a phenomenal success. Okay, how does this one compare with The Snowman? Well, I'll let you know, because we're going to get started right now. Yeah. Okay, Darkrealmers, now I know a lot of people, including my friend JB Taylor over at Taylor Talks, had a lot of trouble getting into Joe Nesbo's book The Snowman, and the movie got blasted by critics. And I can understand some of these concerns and criticisms, because the movie makers took the most recent Harry Hole detective story and turned it into a movie before we'd gotten to know the character. This is the character, you know, after 7 or 8 stories. Okay, so it is a little bit hard for readers to get into, and it is hard to compress a character's virtual working life into one movie. And for those who haven't read the book, okay, you can find my review up there, you know, the little dot thingy. Yeah, okay. I didn't have any trouble getting into it, but I can understand why a lot of people did. Now, the good thing about The Bat is this is the very first Harry Hole detective story. So we're there right at the start of his journey. Now, it's not as him starting off as a detective. He's been a detective for a while, but this is the first chance the reader gets to meet him. And also we get to find out how to pronounce his name, which, please forgive me any Norwegian Darkrealmers out there, but he pronounces it as Hole. Okay, Harry Hole. And being set in Australia, the detectives are all, "Oh, g'day, you're Harry Hole," and he doesn't bother correcting them. Okay, now the story is basically has Harry coming to Australia as an official sort of envoy, or, you know, liaison officer from the Norwegian police, because a Norwegian national has been found murdered in Sydney. And this is what I loved about the book, was the fact that there's a great sense of Harry is discovering Sydney just like any other international tourist. So Joe Nesbo's descriptions of Sydney's are just wonderful, and he doesn't gloss over it's all beautiful. He takes you to the seedy side of Sydney too, you know, and we get to see the gay side of Sydney, you know, with the most popular of the gay venue bars and things like that. But what's also nice about this book is that we learn a lot too, especially me. Now, when he arrives in Australia, he is teamed up with or meets a young police officer, Kevin, who's an Aboriginal officer. And throughout the course of the story, Kevin explains or tells Harry about some of the legends from Australian Aboriginal tribes. And it's fascinating things. Like, I learned for a fact that, you know, the Aboriginal people had their own version of Adam and Eve, where the first man and woman were told to, you know, go out and enjoy the land, but don't touch the honey from this tree. Well, of course they do, and bang, that's it. That was fascinating. But on to the plot itself. Now, this is a very strong character-driven book, because we learn at the beginning that Harry, a very bad alcoholic, and prior to this he was in a car pursuit or chase that killed his partner. Well, the Norwegian police covered it up and made it look like his partner was driving. So because of the sense of guilt Harry feels, he stayed sober for a long, long time. But his downfall comes in Sydney. Now, it's through detective agents and his liaison with the Sydney police where they begin to realise that this murder may not be a one-off, and they look for clues that may tie in similar cases, but they find there's a lot of discrepancies. There's nothing that sort of ties them all together until, and I won't tell you how it happens, but Harry begins a relationship with a Swedish girl called Brigitte, who works at the Aubrey Hotel, which is one of the top venues in Sydney. And we learn a lot about Harry's past, you know, about his former relationship with a girl, Kirsten. We also learn about, you know, how he feels and why he does what he does. So there's that strong sense there of character development. And as I said, because we're first taking this journey with Harry as the very first of the series, we're along for the ride. So we see him develop, we see his flaws, we see what's wrong with him, what can trip him up. Now, through circumstances, Harry falls off the wagon, and when this character falls off the wagon, he falls hard. And being a detective, he has, you know, Dutch courage by the bucket loads. He'll take on a pimp's bouncers and you know, security guards, anything, you know. But even when he's drunk, he's still working. He's asking questions, you know. And in some ways it's a perfect foil, because no one's going to take a drunk seriously. But even though Harry suffers the consequences afterwards, you know, he's very shrewd in the way that he can get answers and so forth. Now, apart from the murder, where the police don't have any clues whatsoever, you know, they're basically at a dead end, okay? There's also, we find that the young police officer that Harry's befriended is found dead, hanging, you know, apparently hung himself from a cord in a flat. And this hits Harry very hard, even though he hasn't known this man very long. He's in tears, you know, and we can understand, we get that sense of, yes, this guy took him under his wing, sort of introduced him to Sydney, but has taken him to other places, you know, too, in search of clues and answers for the, you know, the plot, and trying to solve this mystery. And, you know, so there's this sense of, I felt the sense of loss when this character died, but there's more to it than that, okay? I can't tell you any more, but there's, you know, no spoilers, as you know, Darkrealmers. Now, there's, you know, a wonderful, Joe Nesbo does great red herrings, okay? We're presented with someone who fits the profile of the murderer so well, you think, yeah, okay. But of course it isn't, okay? But he's not a nice character anyway, and he's a bit sleazy, and he's a drug dealer, and he treats women really badly. And this murder victim was under the delusion that she was going to have this happy life with this character, Evan Walker, who, you know, is just, no, he's not into that sort of thing. So there's even though the victim is dead by the time, you know, the story begins, we feel a lot of sympathy for her, and a little bit of sorrow. Now, as I said, this is a great introduction to the Harry Holle series, okay? It's wonderful in the sense of that Joe Nesbo gives you, like I said, a wonderful visual description of Sydney, but also he talks about, you know, the aspect of, you know, Aboriginal, you know, the conflicts and the turmoil that they went through in the 200-year history of white settlement. but he doesn't make it political. He doesn't take one side and he doesn't take another side, and he lets the Aboriginal characters speak for themselves, which is wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and it doesn't become grandstanding, okay? And one of the characters says, you know, you adapt and things like that, and there's a wonderful sense of you're learning Australian history, but you're not getting the political view, and it's not being rammed down your throat, okay? It's a great book. I found it very easygoing, okay? Now, for some of those people who are a little bit, oh, I read The Snowman, or I tried to read The Snowman. No, this one, as I said, we're starting off with our journey with Harry Hole. So this is a great introduction to the series, okay? And I particularly liked it, of course, being an Aussie, and it was set in Australia, and I was very keen to see how an international writer would tackle this, and he does it superbly, okay? There's wonderful characters in this book. Even the minor characters, you know, contribute something to the story, you know, whether it's just their quirkiness, and I'm particularly talking about a character called Otto, but there's, you know, it's just painted with a broad palette of quirky characters, wonderful scenery, that sort of underbelly of tension and sort of, you know, something, you know, underneath the surface that may bubble through any moment and cause problems and so forth. So if you're looking for a good read, and you like detective mysteries, and you like stories about sociopaths and psychopaths, which I do, you will really enjoy this. Now, on another personal note, I'd just like to say, I really do think Hollywood would have done a much, much better job had they turned this book, The Bat, into a movie, because not only could it have been an international co-production between Australia and Hollywood or whoever was producing the series, but it would have been a good introduction, a good starting point. And, you know, if the movie had been successful, you know, in terms of, you know, people enjoyed how it translated into film, it could have been a stepping stone, like so many you know, detective and agent books like Jack Reacher and so forth, you know, become franchises. But I've got a very strong feeling that after being burnt with The Snowman, Hollywood's not going to attempt this again, okay? And it's a shame, because when you've got a writer as good as Joe Nesbo, and this first Harry Hole story sold 14 million copies, which isn't bad, you know, like for a new character, okay? And who knows, maybe someone else will take up the mantle and try and resurrect this character as a movie franchise. I certainly hope so, because he's a great character. Alright, Darkrealmers, well, that's it for my review of The Bat by Joe Nesbo. If you're looking for a book that you know, gives you a bit of a travel log, so you can find out a bit about Australia and Sydney in particular, and if you like, as I said, psychopaths and murderers that are always there but you don't know quite where they're going to spring up, this is the one for you. Alright, Darkrealmers, well, that's it for my review. Thank you so much for joining me, and if you're one of the Darkrealmers who happens to have read this, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to know what you thought of it, okay? And has this review maybe made you want to try it for yourself, okay? I'd also like to know that. Alright, Darkrealmers, that's it from me, horror author and illustrator Michael J. Elliott. And as I always say, if you're going to read a Joe Nesbo book, make sure you do it in the light. Okay, bye for now.